nurseries by using 3 ʻike kupuna principles: hoʻomau, hoʻopono, and hoʻoulu. Okay, everybody, we're not just running around growing coconuts. There's absolutely a process and an energetic field of doing this well. Okay, number one, hoʻomau. Hoʻomau means it's our word for resilience, continuity, resilience. We know we've been colonized. We know we've been, oppressed systematically, etc. And our lands have been taken away from Hawaiians, absolutely. But now we are working on the resilience of responding to things, of how we can do things better. So ho'omau for me has been a driving principle, because it helps us be creative. So when you understand that Western science is a subset to indigenous science, this is Western science, this is indigenous science. So it's a subset. And so the things that I'm learning from people like Indrajit and Nimale and Uncle Natu of Avalangi and our Mana Moana of Moana Nui Akea is profound. So we have to really understand that there are people with more knowledge. And so we have to learn collectively with those who have more knowledge. And we have to cultivate our dreams and ʻike papalu. Ike papalu is our word for intuition and those kind of things. And ʻaʻomai ʻaʻoaku, when we're talking about hoʻomau and the continuity of Hawaiian values, ʻaʻomau ʻaʻoaku means we are teaching ourselves what we need to learn, and it's simultaneously. And so every time Indrajit open a coconut, made vai niu, that's the milk. Every time he husks, it's so instructive. Every time he looks for the malo'o varieties, it's so instructive. And we're going to learn a lot tonight. Another principle, number 2 for us at the neonates, is ho'opono, the speaking of truth. And the truth happens, we believe it's mutually emergent. Meaning, as you sow, so shall you reap, are you guys? So we're doing things with others. People say, oh, you don't have money, you don't have money. I'm like, no, we've got relationships. Money's coming. And I believe that. So radical collaboration is happening now. Pono aku, pono mai. Goodness comes when goodness is given. So you give goodness, you don't expect goodness back. And that's through trusting. Here's what Indrajit did. Here's what it looked like when the Ma'o gang came to our home. And we gave them 220 new, I think 16 varieties. And now they're growing in Lu'ulu'ele. They're doing really well. So ho'opono is the ability to speak truthfully so that we mutually emerge. We really believe that. We're not just talking about coconuts. We're talking about a transformed society. Ho'oulu. Ho'oulu is the animation of spirit. And that's by using simple ideas, but dedicated to love land, serve people. Love land, serve people. Here we are at the Waianae Comprehensive Health Center, and putting 300 or 400 coconuts down, I think 20 varieties or something. And here it is today. And that's how it looks. Do you see Lahiru and Gracie, Indrajit, and Naomi's children? So, and we're ready to give those coconuts out on Saturday, the 25th. So we believe, Indrajit, myself, and Nahiraka truly believe that energy expands by its own goodness. So when Alicia Higa said, come on down, plant, and then we'll give it away, We want to give these coconuts away specifically to the Waianae, Nanakuli, and Makaha communities. So Christian and gang, please know that. You can come down and receive scores. Look at how healthy that new nursery is. So we're going to be available on the 25th. Aloha aku, aloha mai is one of our Hawaiian principles. It actually means love is about loving. So we just love the coconut. We just love the coconut, and that's why we're doing this. There's a 14-minute video that we're not going to show you right now, but Christian, can you put that on the chat? The Heather McMillan of the Urban Aina movement sent us a videographer, and he they did a wonderful job to document our very first planting, not our first, but a planting day at the university. And it captures the spirit of what Niu Now is trying to accomplish. So please, if you have a moment, it's only 14 minutes long, and you can see it. And thank you. This is the Aloha Aina Student Service Club at UH West Oahu. Thank you to our Chancellor, Minette Benham, and to Jesse, Kele'i Nohomoku. He is in the center. He was our president. And now we have I'ivileo Pakara as our president. We couldn't do it without these gangs. We could not do it. So thank you to everyone for doing what we're doing in the Aina Vela of UH West Oahu. I want to just say that, they keep saying that Hawaiians didn't really value coconuts. I'm like, what? So we read it in textbooks, we read it in tourist things. Indrajit's going to talk about knowledge erosion. It's just so ridiculous. Look at this. This is when the Voyager guy came in 1795, and he actually in 1816 he drew these images, and that tattoo, that kakao, that uhi has got coconuts on it. And isn't that a cool image? So we absolutely had coconuts in our diet in very, very pivotal ways. And it was part of our liquids. So we do have a bit of a movement going on with niunow.org. We envision Niu as a relationship rooted in community and aloha aina. And we believe that Niu Now will strengthen Oceania's connection and aloha for cultural food sovereignty. By building on neonate practices to heal ourselves, our future is transformed. Ta-da! So, hahai no ka'ua I ka'ulula'au. Share, it actually literally means when you plant a forest, the rains will follow. That's the science of it. But the no ʻohana, the deeper meaning for me, is share purpose with others and live a life of meaning. Please come on Saturday. I don't think it's November. Okay, that's is also November. We give them out also to honor the makahiki season. So if you miss our August one, because you don't live in the Waianae region, please come in November. We've got 300 to give out on November 26th between 10 and 1 at UH West Oahu. These are some of we gave to 80 different people last year. And it was like a Fellini film. People were like, running out with their coconuts. It was hilarious. So please feel welcome to come on November 26th. Kupu kaniu, kupu ke Kanaka, pua kaniu, pua kawahine ui hua kaniu, hua na keiki, na pula pula o ka ahina, eia ko niu la, e ke akua. I want to close my portion by saying, working with Indrajit and the gang, the fellow neonates, there's Vilsoni here, and other neonates are here. It's changed my life. This is what we're doing at Kukane Local and at UH West Oahu. These are aerial photographs, but we want the coconuts to look like that. Do you see that Aina Momona image? We want the coconuts to look like that. Do you see that spiral? Every month there's food coming. So this is a key idea for us, gang, and it's a pleasure to have you folks here connecting to this movement called Niu Now. But I want to introduce, oh gosh, that was fast. That was too fast, hey, Indrajit. Okay. But I want to say that it's been so much fun because we've done many, many things, and mostly because of our friendships with each other. Vili's here. I really appreciate you being here, Vili. Thank you. Who else is here? We've got Vicky's here. Christian, you're here. It's been really cool to get to know you, Christian. We've got, there's just a lot of people that are interested in this. So thank you, gang. I want to introduce, and Nimali's coming. So please be prepared. because she's coming to teach us more about how to cook with coconuts. Eh, Nimali?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
So
if I get
hopefully
visa,
we're gonna
yeah.
we're flying her in. So
Yeah.
we are planning on having events. We've had events every few months, and people are always welcome to come to learn. So, but I'd like to introduce our indigenous knowledge holder of coconuts. His name is Indrajit Gunasekara, and Indrajit and I have been friends for only about 6 years. Hey, Indrajit, because you know, once I found Indrajit, you know, it's your life changes because joy begets joy, and it's an honor to know you, Indrajit. So I really want your influence in this group. So, e olo mai oi, can you come and begin your talk? Thanks for allowing this time, everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much, Auntie Manulani. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and Christian for allowing us to join today and opening this place for us to work together and to get to know this group. And just to share a few thoughts about what we are doing, why we are doing what we are doing. And yeah, before I move, I like to recognize some people in the audience. Yeah, Auntie Nahiraka Mason is here, our co-founder of Niu Now. Also, Wilsoni Hiraniko, Brother Willie, good to see you. And also Nimali Munasinghe joining us from Australia, my classmate from Sri Lanka that will be visiting us in the next few months, hopefully. And yeah, let me share my screen. Oh, okay, full screen. Here, my talk today, my speech, I like to focus more on the relationship that as a Niu Now, what we see, the new, the word that we use throughout Hawaii and Pacific as for the coconut sufiraj, known as scientifically the word new, which I will be using throughout my presentation. And why that we see the new as a relationship that rooted with the people and the aloha aina. And I'll go a little bit into the Hawaiian history and the history and historically how the new is being viewed and the evidence that we find, and also what we currently see in the current situation, and also what we are doing as the Niu Now, as a community, and also at the University of Hawai'i West Oahu, and what we wish to see, and our invitation for you to grow coconut, and how, and what are the resources that we would be able to provide and to support you we at this time. And if you see this picture, those are some of the local new varieties we found on the island of Oahu, but not included the Molokai and Maui and the other islands that we went in. And because since mostly we are talking to a focus in the Waianae, we thought it's mostly focused on Oahu and this region. And okay, why is okay? Oh, little bit about me, where I am coming from is I'm Sinhalese from Southern Sri Lanka, coming from a town called Matara. And if you look in the map here, and we are over here in Hawaii, it's in the Pacific Ocean over here. And when they say the Kupu kaniu, Kupu ke Kanaka, when the coconut is grown, humanity is flourished, that fact is also true to us. That's the true fact throughout the tropical island, because we all, our ancestors are the who recognize this, the tree of life, and name it, that build that relationship. In other words, my people ate coconut since we've been in the island of Sri Lanka. And we knew everything we needed to know about the coconut. It is a relationship that we grew up with. That's how it was being shown to us. And particularly, that's how my mother showed to me, this is your tree. This is how this tree is produced food. This is what you needed to harvest. This is what you don't need it to be harvested. This is what needed to be protected. This is what needed to be planted at this time during the year. And because of these function. And these are the new we use for fighting and the function and the game. And so what is needed to be protected, what is needed to be safeguarded were connected with us. And that is the relationship, that is the connection I see with Auntie Manu and with the people and the community that I worked in Hawaii. And so when we look at the history a little bit here, we see how Niu is being viewed. And this is from 1866. The Kanaka is talking about the coconut, writing to a newspaper, to be ashamed of the practice, what falling as a moral obligation, failing of the moral obligation. This is in 1866. And which is evident, which is shows how is that relationship is strong. How is that connection is strong? Why that particular tree is being chosen as the tree of life, and how is the worldview was shaped around the Niu. That was I see, that was we see when we see such a piece of writing, that's such a piece, such a connection to coconut, such a connection to Niu, into indigenous culture, in the rooted culture in Hawaii. Even going forward a little bit in the 1875, when Her Majesty Queen Emma visited Waialua, and the people from Waianae bring her their most favorite sweetest coconut. And she writes this piece in her diary, which means there was a piece of knowledge that knowing what are the varieties of sweet coconut and how to cultivate that, how to treat it, even to connect to a royal practice and to see with that, that's such value there. And when we see that, this is talking about the genetic diversity and the coconut varieties. Coconut itself is a diverse subject and so many different varieties. Unfortunately, up to now, what varieties are coconut in Hawaii is not being recognized and acknowledged. And in not knowing that itself is committing a genetic erosion, which means we don't know what we have. That means how do we going to know in tomorrow what we are losing? What we lost in yesterday, we don't know today. And if we are not looking into what varieties, what are the associated function with that name, that varieties, that is a problem and needed to be recognized. And this is what very little bit is. It's only a one coconut grove that we saw in the Kalailoa, in the Uli park corner of on the beachfront. And last 4 years, I witnessed the last 8 trees of the tree when we got over there, and the dropping the heart of the last tree of a variety of coconut, small and the shape. I have some of the large coconut that found in that variety in that grove. And one in the presentation, our friend Dr. Lelemia Ewine indicated that this was used in the making music instrument. That something has the function that associated with. And coconut to live, to flourish, that function, what is needed to be acknowledged, what is needed to be connected with. And the absence of a function creating a genetic erosion, which means that grove is now, if you look at today, there is no living existence. All the trees were wake. I mean, this is only one grove. And then we look at the history and talks about hundreds of coconut grove, uluniu. and the function and treated as a royal function and the royal practice as it's been in the tropical island and the known throughout the world. And not only a genetic material and the varieties, also, how about the knowledge? This is a published article and pointing at the Mediterranean palm trees in the middle of the Kapolei Park and pointing them to be the coconut tree. I mean, for a tropical island and the children that growing up in the island and the connecting with the practice that rooted into a culture. When you say a disservice, what else you can call a disservice? And this is the tree our ancestors that collectively chose to be the tree of life because of it has a function, it has a relationship, it meant a meaning. And the question is, how did it end up being just the ornamental tree? How did it, what is the destiny of the coconut tree? What is the destiny of the new varieties in Hawaii? How did it end up being in this place? And if you go a little bit back in the Hawaiian traditional understanding, I'm focusing on a Hawaiian traditional understanding in this presentation because of our finding and some of the research I did with Auntie Manu and I, the things we found and provided a strong evidence of the relationship that Auntie talked about earlier, her talk, how strong it was, how Niu is understood, and cultures that call coconut is indigenous food has different name of calling Niu. That is not all the different stages understood just to be medium ripe coconut, young coconut, medium, with the coconut. It has its own name. In my own Sinhala culture, we have Ranka Ranki, Atti Gobolu, Vavara Kurumba, Kalati, Pol, Koropol, so many different names. And also this fact is true for the coconut varieties. And it doesn't start or end with coconut. It understood in that concept with that one name. And this listing is one of the evident piece that we see. I mean, we connect with it. And we say it is not just a relationship, it's a symbiotic relationship. Because this is not just a food tree. It does way more to the humanity. It's root the culture, and the products that come out of that tree support an ecological system and the function system. Place that grow coconut, other trees can also grow and do well. The story tells in Tahiti and the places, the coconut is the first tree to come and last tree to leave. In other words, the waves and the currents bring in the 100 miles. No, 1,000 miles in the 100 days. And its root and the new roots in the sandbar in a tough condition because the tree can grow, doesn't need much nutrition, and it can absorb the salt water and produce nutrition and the nitrogen and to grow. And so once a tree started to grow, birds started to come and rest on the tree, and the soil started to build around. And so it created a motu, it created an island itself. And then with a disaster and the situation, that is the last tree to go, last tree to be stand, and still to support the functional relationship to be built, right? And in the other words, this tree produces flowers year round, non-stop. Every moon cycle, every 4 months, there's a flower is opening. And what does it going to do is the most of the fruit trees are regional, and only bees and the other pollinators have only those flowers during certain season. But when there is a coconut tree, bees rely on to get a pollen and the nectar. Pollen is also their source of protein and lively source. Yeah. When there is a uluniu, a coconut grove, there is a healthy bee production. That means there are mangoes and other orange and other trees that needed to be pollinated. And that service is being needed. The service is being freely provided. Yeah. In the other word, when the coconut groves go out of the function, when the grove dies, mean that is also a disservice to the entire ecosystem. And when we look at the chiefly function and the royal function in Hawaii, and also in the tropical island, one of the first thing for a chief to do is to grow a coconut grove. And to challenge a chief is to go and cut down his coconut grove. Then he's plurist angry and he wants to go and kill his enemies. And I mean, this is growing a coconut grove and connecting that. This is something we also read in my Sinhala culture. Ours goes back to early, like 11th centuries, like a 5th century to 11th centuries growing coconut grove and connecting a community and bringing that community to be responsible of taking care of that grove and supporting the humanity. And yeah, I mean, this is where us, the niunow.org come into the function, come into build that relationship. This is where we saw that relationship is needed to be built. That we need to recognize what is the important and how to bring that value to the current and how to revise that framework for thinking, seeing the coconut as a liability or that dysfunctional relationship, and not growing tree to be a food tree or a culturally rooted relationship. Instead of only having ornamental value and having only a very narrowed market for the coconut. In other words, you can buy coconut trees in some of the stores being sold into like for $300 to $500 being called dwarfed on the short trees or whatever. And when the tree is freely available to a community, when they can be grown and to be shared, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we look into that, doing and growing it and sharing with the communities and to connecting to our original roots as well? And so we are looking into the coconut as a cultural resources, also nutritionally rich, it's a functional food, to how to make it into a food. Also, most importantly, ecological connection, ecologically viable resource that allows to bring a community, that allows to build that cultural relationship. I mean, those are not separate things, separate entities. I mean, these are all connected. And at the end, that's the one thing, growing coconut. And that's where I built this framework, heritage-based ʻohana new gene banking. Yeah, gene banking is another fancy way to take plant coconut. And in the typically to the safeguarding the varieties and recognizing the varieties what we have and what are the best uses for the varieties we have. And to do this, we got to know a little bit more about the coconut tree. We got to go back to the place that 1800 where the people talked very passionately why we are not growing coconut, why taking a moral obligation to continue this practice and to connecting with that community, connecting with that people and bringing that practice back. And that also holds a key for what we are looking today and what we need today most importantly. And that's where in this practice we propose growing uluniu, the large-scale coconut grove. And also in the large-scale growing, mostly focus here is to look in the ancient coconut grove that exists today and to see what varieties are there and to make sure that varieties are documented, and we have a process for that. And we replanted, we collected seed, and the germinators sprouted that seed and planted in a way that we know what we are planting, and looking into what kind of uses, what kind of function there are, and looking into the history and mo'olelo, and finding the people who are working with them, who had that connection, that relationship, and documenting that relationship piece, as well as making sure that actual tree will continue to a next generation. And that's the main focus of the uluniu, designing a large scale of coconut grove. This can be planted anywhere from 12 trees to thousands, and based on the place availability. Also, the small case, the community need-based small garden. This one we are mainly targeting the public land, schools, and the places that people hang out, and the hospital or the universities, and the places that has room. And we can collect trees, we can select trees based on what is the need of that community. Say like example of this, the Kupuna's place or elder's home, and they need short trees as the small drinking water and the sweet water, or something is related with the function, or medical communities, or they needed to trees that produce cream, good, rich for eating. And so we can characterize those trees and give to that certain place and to be planted. Not every place can grow tall coconut trees. We understand that. Not every place can also go short coconut trees. Has room available for long trees to be grown. And how to make that diversity also a nice presentation, and the educational piece. We can show what is the variety, how to recognize the two different trees from each other, how to see what differentiate what is called a variety, why it is different. And to do that, we have a documenting process. And one is looking at the tree's characteristic, not only for the characteristic of the plant, also the origin, where the tree is coming from, what grove, and what are the stories behind that grove when it was being planted, or what are the connection there, what are their human connection, and how to bring that community back to grow and to work in that. And it's a part of the work that we are, Niu Now is working with the community in Molokai, and that we will be moving with a Vicky Duran, who is in the audience today, and with to the Maui, Hana Maui, that to work in the uluniu. And what are the origin of this niu? What is the historic background? And also looking at some of the original varieties of niu in Hawaii. When we say original varieties, that's the phenotypic variation that more likely not being cross-pollinated with the introduced varieties, that trees spend in isolation for a longer period of time. That is the key, that trees are needed to be looked in and to be recognized and documented. Especially Hawaii has some historically known varieties like Niu Hiwa, Niu Lelo, and finding those varieties that lives in those groves, and ensuring that varieties are being documented and commonly understood, and also the varieties that found has a name and connected with the function. Thank you, Auntie Manu. This function is the cornerstone here. That function we needed to be recognized and to be acknowledged. That function what going to allow us that tree to be connected with the humanity. connected with us. And with planting, going back to the planting grow, this concept is polymatu. It's coming from Pacific Island, from Polynesia, and each indigenous culture had their own way of planting coconut and keeping varieties. Whereas coconut pollination in the biology is a little bit complicated because they can cross-pollinate, also self-pollinate. And only ways you're going to know this is knowing your coconut tree well and the pattern of flowering and the being able to recognize which flower and the, because in normally speaking, the every tree has a flower opening within a time frame every 4 weeks. Every 4 weeks, one flower open from one side to the other side. Then each inflorescence flower has male and female flowers. And the male flowers open, starting to be receptive and release pollen soon as they open in the first 20 days. Then there will be no longer male flowers. Then the female flowers becoming receptive. So their receptivity period is mostly in the tall varieties, like a 3 to 4 days. If there is another flower is open from the other end, they can self-pollinate. If it's not, they are being cross-pollinated with another variety. In that case, you're not going to get the same varieties of coconut. You will be planting an unknown tree because that characteristics are not going to be reflect on that seedling. I mean, if you look at this chart here, this is from Dr. Roland Bordak, and you will see the one in the, these two is easy to recognize, the third and fourth. It's the third one has a seedling type, and the female parent with the mother is a green tall. Also, the father is a green tall. When you look at the seedling and the color is match both mother and father's color. Then you go to the fourth one. You see the female flower, which is the mostly you're going to pick the seed from. And then the male plant, father's tree is red dwarf and the red one. So when you get the seedling, you see the color different over here. This one is a green, this one is the orange seedling. But planting that tree, you are not going to get the same nut in the future because that's going to produce a different variety. This technique is really good if you have really good varieties of coconut that you do want them to crossbreed. So you plant them together in the setting. In the actual plan, this is how this looks like. This is the grow we did in the Kukaniloko Wahiawa. So we selected 16 varieties of 108 trees. So each one, based on the numbers of the tree, we grouped them together and then divided them with the different color based on the color of the seedling, knowing that. So look at the number 1, 2, and 5, because number 1 has 9 plants that we planted over here. Number 5, there are 3, and the number 2, there are 12 trees. So if we get the seedling from the number 1, it has a good chance that since we have each motu, which means each triangle 10 foot by 10 foot, and then the between each motu is a 40 foot. So that allows a good chance when the tree grows them to cross-pollinate within the same variety, which is going to produce the true to the type varieties. So we have a good chance keeping that variety in the cluster. So when the time we get seed from that tree, if they were being cross-pollinated with the one of this neighboring tree, so the seedling color is going to reflect either orange or brown, one of these colors. That fact is true for those varieties. If we're expecting this variety to be given out, that variety to be planted, so we know what color to look at, how to make it to our best ability to keep that variety true to the time. One of the things is with the importance of coconut is knowing your varieties and keeping that varieties and continuing that growth. I mean, that's where the indigenous practice and the practitioners and that knowledge piece come to play. I mean, there are scientifically known practices as well. You can test the gene and the lab practices, but this is something people did for millennia, and 1,000 years past 1,000 years. This tree lives through a 3 to 4 generations and producing fruit. And keeping a practice, keeping a growth, and keeping a pattern is the part of building a relationship. That's where we see this is a symbiotic relationship. This is the relationship within the ʻaina and the growing other plant. I mean, not necessarily growing only niu. Also, we can plant ulu and other food producing plant in between. And because the material come from the niu, it's going to support everything, all the living plant. And yeah, this is our Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center new nursery. December to July. By August, nothing should be there. This whole nursery should go. And yeah, Auntie Manu shared already, and she's going to share more about this practice. Yeah, we have like a 400 seedling. Those keikis are ready to go. And we want people to plant them. We want people to take them out and plant. And our growth, our plants are free to the community. And because we believe this is a relationship. Community came in together to put this plant together. We found all the seedlings free. We didn't have to spend $1 finding any seed. And so in that capacity, we can give it out at the same way. And this is our action plan of creating the uluniu practice again and growing coconut. Whether you're planting a one tree in your front yard, or whether you have a land somewhere else to be planted, or whether you have access to somewhere that you know a place that coconut can be grown, and let it to grow a food tree, and to be that functional food producing tree. And before I end, I like to talk one more thing about the linking is soil rejuvenation and the ecological function. This is our UH West Oahu garden. And pretty much we rely on the rain and the water that we applied when really it needed. And what we did is, knowing that we don't have irrigation system or water access, we dig trench ditches 3 foot by 3 foot deep and the tree, and then add a lot of coconut husk underneath and let it get really wet and the rain over wet, and then planted the tree and put the husk around, and the soil came around from the digging and mixed with the more coconut husk and the mulch and planted uala, the sweet potatoes. Here, this is the progress we got 1 year after. And think about the nuts and the husk that are available in this community. If we run them to a mortar, if we use our own coconut husk, instead of bringing it from somewhere else and imported husk, if we look into producing something with what is available, that's freely available in this land, and instead of looking at something else or somebody else to produce what we need. I mean, That's the type of symbiotic relationship we are looking for. We wish to see and we wish to connect with. And again, this is not only a food tree. It produce year-round food-wise, also produce year-round other material to sustain the life. And being that tree and disconnecting it from a food tree and the cultural tree, just focus with ornamental tree. And that's where the disconnection is being built. That's where the fear and the liability is being built. And as a community, what can we do to change it? As a community, what can we do to bring this tree to be a food tree? This tree to be a liable resources for us. And also think about the education piece and the opportunity that has and the key that it holds for us to come together and to work as a community. And yeah, these are some of our current partners and the community that we work with. And before I end my presentation, I'd like to thank you all and to know that we see this is the relationship that deepen our own understanding of art as well as our own community and us to work together and to aloha ina. Mahalo. Mahalo, thank you.
Way to go, Indrajit. Yeah. Yeah, that was a fire hose, everybody. That was really, really exciting, Indrajit. Can you imagine living with that? It's really, really, that's a lot of knowledge, everybody. So it was, and Christian, I'm really stoked that you planted 4 new right away. And that's in Kahumana?
No, that's at my farm, like right down the road. I have my
Nice.
little 7 acres in the making.
Nice. How are they doing? How are they doing?
They're doing really well. They're already like 6 foot tall.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
I want to plant lots more.
Well, there's you know, I know there's a lot of questions, and there's is it all right, Christian? Is it all right if we just start opening it up so that people can ask questions?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay. Because we're basically here to be of service to you folks, so that yeah, Q&A. So you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand and let us know, and we'll respond if we know anything. Anybody? Yeah. Coconut information guy.
Aloha.
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 I'm muted, or I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, that's good.
I had 2 questions. The first was when we were talking about the beetle at the beginning, he was talking about spraying palms that were going off island. Are people currently growing coconuts as a landscape plant and selling the individual plants and moving them from island to island? Is that actually going on right now? Does anyone know about that?
Yes. So not only coconuts, but it's more often other kinds of palms, but yeah,
Will
any
the
kind of
rhinoceros beetle get into the other palms as well?
Yeah, so the preferred hosts are, aside from the coconuts, phoenix palms, variety of fan palms, and and royal palms, and we've seen them in foxtail palms when the populations get high enough. So all of those are potentials. And then of course in the soil, if it's a rich enough soil with enough organic material, that could be breeding material, even if the host palm isn't the host.
Wow.
Wow, that's shocking.
It's scary.
So that's scary. That's scary. Keith, is there a way that we can absolutely stop that transfer of this? You know, because the Koki frogs came in through Kmart. I swear to God, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And,
so I think that what we're what's being required very soon via the compliance agreements I mentioned is inspection every time host palms like coconuts and fan palms are moving around. So it's really a self-inspection, but I think, you know, just if everybody knows what to look for when there's CRB damage, then that'll reduce the chances that something moves. So particularly the ones that are moving to other islands, though, those get inspected by the Department of Agriculture and will be rejected if there's any CRB damage or any signs of infestation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like it's unlikely you're ever going to find all of them with human eyes. So if there was any way, just because it's such a serious thing to, you know, the most productive food plant that we have, that they could cease all movement of host palms.
Yeah, and
Would be
you
ideal.
mentioned, oh, sorry to interrupt. You mentioned the sprays that, yeah, we've had some success with, it was a drone application of cypermethrin, but it did sort of drive the beetles that were currently in the tree out. So, you know, not everybody's going to be into that all the time, but for shipments, yeah.
Yeah, and it just seems like it's just a matter of time then if that's the case. It's not going to stop it going to the other islands if that's the case eventually. I mean, unfortunately, unless you stop the movement of all palms that are potential hosts, which would be an easy 100% fix. And I don't know if there's anyone in legislature that you connect with that sees how dire of a situation it could be, and you know, they'll be warned. And of course, that just makes every island's own nurseries step up their game, which is a good thing too. But anyways, I didn't want to get, I can't believe that, but that's good to know. Your planting you showed had a beautiful kind of husk spiral. I was hoping maybe you guys could describe that planting method and talk about that climate. I'm assuming it was a fairly dry climate. And you know, what's below the soil? What don't we see that went into that incredible 1 year growth?
Hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah, no, you know, the most important thing is with the soil is supporting the microorganism and all the bacteria and those living things to grow. And the soaking the coconut husk with rainwater and leaving them for a period of time and using them, then mixing them with the soil. I mean, we saw a tremendous improvement in soil doing that. So, and also making sure that they stay all the time moist after you apply it on the period of time, yeah, not letting them fully dried off.
How big are those holes that you dug underneath?
3 by 3.
3 by 3.
It's based on the place, yeah, because we are in a little bit dry condition. But most places, if I'm doing this in the Konohiki or somewhere, I wouldn't dig that deep, like go by 1 foot, and just cover it on the surface.
And your sprouting beds, you're running everything horizontal with the face of the coconut, the bung, or whatever you want to call it, parallel to the ground versus vertical. Is there like a particular reason you like to do that, or?
It based on the place. It based on place that you will be using. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if there's a moist place, you don't want to add too much moisture. Coconut really don't like much moisture as well. It needs a little bit that heat as well. Yeah.
Well, when you need an intern or need some extra hands for your next event, I would love to fly over there and be right with you, because I'll probably ask you questions for 7 hours or however long we're working together.
We'll let you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, we'll be in Hana sometime in next month.
Okay, I'd love to have you over, or even if you need well, we got to check our schedule, but I don't know if you probably have a place to stay already, but you let us know what we can do. We'd love to get together with you.
Thanks.
All right, we have a few questions here in the feed.
Keep guys hand raised up real fast. Sorry.
Keith, you got a question?
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know which one you wanted to go through first. My question is about the different varieties, and you're looks like you're establishing different varieties. What are the parameters that you're looking at in the plants to decide, what's one variety versus the other? Like, what are the phenotypes that you're classifying to distinguish one type from another?
Yeah, I mean, because most of the germ colors are visible, and also the growth pattern, and based on the International Coconut Genetic Resource by Dr. Roland Bordiac has a framework he developed in the recognizing phenotypic. Also, I mean, looking at, you can pretty much generally tell of the growth pattern and the shape of the tree, of the crown shape, will the leaves are upward or the downward, or also the bulb. And I use a frame, the frame form that look at the root and the bulb and the tree structure of the form, as well as the crown, leaf, and also the fruit pattern and those type of morphological characteristics.
Thank you.
There was a question on Indrajit on the medicine. Can you speak about the potential of different forms of Niu as medicine?
Niu is known as the medicine for everything. I mean, now it's starting to understand as a treatment for the diabetes. Yeah, coconut has the medium chain fatty acid. Yeah, I mean, it's not the which can be treated directly like the insulin for the diabetics and thing. You can send me your email. I can send you some more information if you want about that, because there are a lot of research on that subject. And also the coconut oil is used as the skincare and a lot of other function. Also the food wise, coconut is rich in fiber and considered as the functional food, which can be used with a lot of other things. Yeah. Also the water has high electrolyte and the other uses.
And also, I would like to add one more medicinal benefit, and it also helps to lower cholesterol level, because it increases the HDL cholesterol, which is good cholesterol for health, and lower the LDL cholesterol, and therefore it also good for lowering cholesterol, increasing good cholesterol level. And many other uses. Actually, the king coconut, the young coconut water act as some saline solution. It's just rehydrate and give a good balance of sodium, potassium, and many other minerals to our body, and therefore rehydration benefits. And as you mentioned, the coconut water in Sri Lankan culture, coconut oil. It's a very good oil for hair growth. In Sri Lanka, we made virgin coconut oil at home. Our grandparents usually made at home, and they applied when we are in our childhood. They applied the coconut oil, give massage to grow hair. And it's really good. And also, I found some research have found that it's very good for dementia, like memory loss. When we are aging, we have some dementia the people get, and the coconut has much benefit to control dementia. And so many health benefits now, therefore it's getting more popular, coconut uses. As you mentioned, even though it contains saturated fat, it's very good for health. Unlike other saturated fats, coconut fat is much beneficial to our health. So many benefits, health benefits.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Nimali.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nimali. Before we ask Kevin your question, can we just talk about ants, Indrajit? If they have ants on some of the coconut palms, is that a serious concern?
It is a concern, but I wouldn't say serious, because the concern is ant brings mite, and the ant is a kind of like a beneficiaries of another species, because the mite is the big problem, because they suck the sugar out of coconut when the fruits are very young, and then they exhaust what they poop out sugar. So then the ant becoming like a symbiotic relationship with the mite who release sugar for them. So then they are starting to eat out the coconut. I mean, especially in the dry areas like Hawaii'i, we see that as a big problem, big issue. But it can be controlled with the soap solution also.
Neem oil.
Sulfur and soap. Sulfur is another form of limestone. Yeah, the sulfur and soap spray would be a good organic solution for that.
Thank you, Indrajit. Kevin, do you have a question?
Yeah, yes. Actually, a couple. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Generally, when we're planting coconuts at our nursery, we just kind of lay them down about half in the soil and half sticking up, and we get a good germination rate. Some of my friends, and I noticed in the pictures, you whack off a little section of the top, and what is the purpose for that, and how much does that improve germination?
Speed up. That speed up the germination a little bit, because we whack up the one side of the nut which is naturally on the top, because when the nut is hanging on the tree, there is a one side in the top, one side is the down. Normally with the gravitationally, the sprout will shoot up from the top. And so if you put in the right angle and the slicing that allows to go air to go a little bit in, also you can monitor the moisture, when to water and when to not to water.
So it helps get more moisture into the nut, which accelerates the germination.
Correct.
Okay, and then the other question, I guess this is for Keith. My idea of growing coconuts at my nursery, although I'm a landscape contractor, the nursery I'm starting is more for food. With the Coconut Rhinoceros Beetle, it was quite a few years ago, we had you might say an epidemic of a gall wasp that attacked our willy or erythrina trees that swept through the islands. And it was like, it was mind-boggling. It like, whoa, they were there one day and they were all gone the next. It was devastating. And it seems the way the coconut rhinoceros beetle is spreading, it's slow, but it is spreading, and so it seems that I guess the tree of life, which to me means you can eat it, and it's going to feed you. If one is treating it with chemicals and you're required to take off the fruit and the flowers, it sounds to me maybe by the time the chemical has subsided and you can eat the fruit, you might have to retreat. So so that's kind of one concern. Are there safe products to use that can be sprayed on edible crops for the rhinoceros beetle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And all the treatments now, we're sort of in a transition phase where most of our current essentially work plan is eradication. So nothing that we're recommending officially is essentially long-term. It's more short-term. What can we do to bring these populations down as much as possible? So if this does end up being a persistent population, we'll have to have some cultural practices that allow for harvest. So right now, some of the pesticides are still being approved. So in the United States, coconut growing is not big business. So a lot of the labels for pesticides are not made with coconuts on them at all, or concerns for how to harvest coconuts or what the pre-harvest interval is. So I think that's going to be a work in progress to develop, what are some practices, non-pesticide practices, and for people who want to use pesticides, what are some practices that allow harvest going forward? And we don't really have those in place.
And then,
but that's a great.
As far as you might say my new nursery, I'm trying to be a little more organic, and part of organic is rather than spraying Roundup to control weeds, you use mulches. And so it seems like the mulches are, actually a potential kind of increasing the potential of having problems with beetles.
Yeah, absolutely. All the great benefits of mulch we recognize. Mulch and compost are great for weed control, moisture retention, a source of nutrients as they break down, and that they're relatively low cost. So it's really just going to be kind of a balancing act for how prevalent is CRB in your area, and especially probably the biggest problem with the use of mulch is the staging in big piles rather than the deployment, like tilling it into soil or using it as a fairly thin, a few inch, cover for those kinds of control activities. So it's really going to have to just be a personal choice kind of balancing act.
So my thought is keeping it thin, and not making it too thick. And then, although I think I asked the question at one of the other coconut beetle meetings about feral chickens. Has anyone looked at actually having free range chickens in your coconut grove to mitigate, the grubs?
We haven't measured the effects of that, but we do know that chickens will eat them. So for example, if you pull them out of the ground and just throw them, the chickens will tear them apart and eat them, and appears to be good nutrition. It's a high protein, low fat food for the chickens. So it's excellent feed, and they'll forage for them on their own as well. But again, chickens don't go usually 8 inches down into mulch. So again, if your soil is thinner, it's going to help the effective predators like chickens and mongoose as well. Mongoose enjoy a CRB for lunch too.
Right.
So
pukas in the coconuts, which is not desirable. The mongoose are the ones that eat the holes in them, also the fruit.
Yeah. So right. So I guess balancing all these things. So, but yeah, thinner mulch. If you choose to use mulch, as thin as you can use it is going to be the best for keeping the populations of CRB low, especially on an organic farm.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for the info.
Billy.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Manu and Indrajit and Keith and those who are here. This is the largest gathering I've seen of people talking about Niu. I just want to say that the coconut tree has had such a bad rap in the Pacific. Pacific Islanders have been called, useless coconuts. So it's used in a very derogatory term. So people, the tree has been so much maligned and kind of derided and laughed at, and listening to this conversation, it reminds me of how there's so much ignorance and misinformation in the community. I would probably hazard to guess more than 90% of people in Hawaii know hardly anything. Really, they may have the trees, but they just don't know what to do with them, right? And so the question then is, it seems like such a big task, and there is a need for something like a Coconut Institute, a center where all this research could be done. I mean, there's so much research, and employ people. Sri Lanka, I think, has a Coconut Institute that provides a wonderful model. Why is it possible to have such an institute here? Manu.
It's that growing usefulness, but what Indrajit we believe in, and you, is that people want to snatch this for economic engine, and that is not our role. Our role is to get coconuts into people's backyards and into the safety of our communities. So we at UH West Oahu would love to develop a new research institute We have 900 acres. Our chancellor has been very, very supportive, but we're not a Research One institution. Indigenous knowledge is not found in laboratories. Our knowledge is found in situ, in context, on land. So this is a growing concern for us, and it will be addressed within the next 5 years. I know, Billy. So thank you for holding that candle out, and just know that it's coming in its own accord. Thank you, Billy. Absolutely, and I think 90% is absolutely. I think it's 99% of people do not know anything about coconuts, and those that say they do, they just know about, I don't know. They know this much. And it's only to sell. So please know that the ignorance is profound, and now it's time for to recover that. So thank you, Billy. Vince, way to make it.
Hi, Manu. Aloha, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Vincent Mean. I'm president of Hawaii Farmers Union United, and it's so wonderful to see so many nuts here tonight. You know,
we're called niunates, Vince. Niunates.
I tell you, I love it. I love it. And you know, one of the things that I've been back in the day, an agronomist said to me that coconuts like to concentrate chlorides. And so what I do with our coconuts on our property here in Wailuku is 1 part of seawater to 30 parts of fresh water, and water the coconuts with that to raise the vitality of the coconuts. And you know, it's a thing. I sit on the board of agriculture, so I really like to have any initiatives that you folks feel you want to bring forward through the Department of Agriculture. I can help champion in that respect through getting it on the agenda and having discussions about this. It's really important to, like Vili was saying, because what I was hearing him say was that this is part of the problem here in Hawaii, that we do not have an agricultural system that focuses in on all of the agricultural research that could be done, and also the agricultural vitality that these islands can produce. And so we're working on that. I envision this as a legacy fund that will come forward with the support of policies from the legislature that will invite in that legacy fund, that there's no return on investment, that the legacy fund is basically built to support an agricultural system here in Hawaii that can recycle its nutrients back onto the land and be able to grow the vitality we can grow. So I want to encourage everybody tonight, if you're not a member of HFUU, please go to hfuu.org and become a member, because it really matters at the legislature. They want to know numbers, and they want to know that people out there are like, no kidding, this is what they want to come forward for Hawaii, because there's no farmers at the legislature. And we really need to have that kind of voice. Christian knows, you know, every morning we get up, we go into the trench of our farms. And thankfully, we love our farms and love what we do, that we kiss the walls of the trench. But, you know, we need to come up into the clouds like we're doing right now tonight and discuss these things and be inspired by these things. So when we go back into the trench, we can continue to kiss the walls of the trench we're in and know that there's others out there who value the same things that we value. So I want to just applaud and thank you for all the people that were here tonight and the experts who spoke to it. I'm sorry I had to come in so late, but I was with a donor on a farm that we were, you know, visiting and such. So doing some HFUU work in that respect. But I'm so excited to get back home in time to be able to hear some of this, and I'll revisit this because it's going to be on Facebook Live. Yeah, it's going to be uploaded tomorrow, so all this presentation will be there for everybody to see.
Nice.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you for that. You know, with the farming and talking about food, we do not believe we can talk about the sustainability without talking about growing new. This is the tree of life. It is not growing lettuce and cucumber. That's not sustainability in our book. Sorry. No, sustainability is growing starch. In the tropical world, starch grows in the tree. And we need to talk about what is the stable, what is the starch, and how can we get community together to characterize this food that grow within us. that food that us we know. And thank
And
you.
just so you know, Namali, I use coconut as an aftershave. Okay, hasn't been growing my hair, but I tell you, I bathe myself in coconut oil, and it's an essential fatty acid. And you're right,
Yeah.
you know, these are really good fats. Even, you know, saturated fat has definitely gotten a bad name, but essential fatty acids, we need them, they're essential. And so I really appreciate you speaking to that in that respect, because I love everything about coconuts. And nice to see Ryan here tonight too, my brother of a different mother. So thank you, everybody. Christian, you want to close this out tonight, or you
We've
folks
got
don't
Gary.
want to,
Vince, can we have Gary? Can we ask if Gary wants to
Yeah.
say anything? Because you raised your hand, Gary.
Hi, thanks, you guys. Hey, I'm sorry to ask such a mundane banal question after all these high-level questions, but I'm at 1,200 feet in outside of Hilo, east side, and I've got an organic regenerative farm, and I've tried incorporating coconuts into my plantings unsuccessfully up to this point. I don't know if I'm wasting my time or if there's any potential for incorporating any varieties of coconuts into the work I'm doing, and if so, if you can suggest any companion plantings to increase the potential viability.
It's the elevation question, Indrajit.
Elevation, we got to find the right varieties.
That's right.
That would be able to do in that type of setting. Yes, there are trees, there are varieties that do really good in that type of setting.
We live at 2,000 feet, Gary, and we can sprout them, but we need to give them away. They don't do really well up here, 2,000 feet in the West. So they're absolute. We haven't found a really good coconut that grows at this elevation at all yet. But that's why if we have this new institute, we'll be able to share that information and etc. So that's a great question.
I mean, those are some sort of research that needed to be happened in Hawaii, and to look into the three actual varieties, what we have here. When we don't know even what we have here, how come we going to know what grows in the valley in that situation? Yeah, I mean, we are trying to collect some information and to see and finding the trees that do well. In pretty much when we drive through or somewhere and we see a tree in the high elevation, turn back and go and see, okay, what is that variety and do we have that in our setting, and will we be able to get some seed and to experiment growing that. You know, coconut is a generational thing. In order to grow a coconut variety, it takes like a 30 to 40 years. I mean, look at the time and the people and the generation needed to come together to create this to be happen. I mean, if we start that today, we can see something happening in next 20 years, next 30 years.
Well, my place is conceived of as a research institute, and I've got a 250-year business plan. So if you have any desire to do any long-term research at 1,200-foot elevation and are looking for a place to do it, I would like to make my place available.
Gary, which island are you from and which side?
I'm outside. I'm in Kurtistown, about 15 miles outside of Hilo to the south.
Yeah, no, Kurtistown. Oh no, that's an unusual place. Yeah, no, that place. Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Is there any more questions before we sort of wrap things up here for the evening? All right, well, I just want to thank everyone for
Christian, excuse me for a second. I just wanted to mention December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on Maui in Waikapu at Hawaii Taro Farm, 300-acre farm is going to be our annual convention this year. So please find your way there. As you come into the property, there's a whole line of coconuts, young coconuts being grown.
Nice.
Be a couple hundred coconut trees. Yeah, right where the convention's going to be. And so yeah, please make your way to Maui December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and you won't regret it. It's an amazing experience when all these farmers get together and network with one another, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you all so much tonight for being on. Christian, thank you. You can take us out, please.
Yeah, I just want to give a big mahalo to Auntie Manu and Indrajit and Keith and for everyone else for joining us tonight. It was very informative. I learned a lot. I'm very excited for August 27th at the Waianae Comp for the Niu giveaway and being a part of that. And, you know, like Vince said, please join, become a member, because every member we get gives us a bigger voice when we go to the legislator to get things like a Niu Institute put in place and get this legacy fund and all these kind of things that we want to support. So please check us out. Hope to see you soon. Thank you all very much.
Well done.
Aloha.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you, Indrajit. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Well done.
Mahalo, Indrajit. Mahalo,
Well
Manu.
done. Well done.
Aloha,
Bye, Ross.
aloha.
Bye,
Mahalo for,
Molly.
mahalo for
Bye.
inviting me.
Thank you, Aunt.
Bye.
Thanks, Ross. Sweet dreams, everyone. Bye, Indrajit. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Vince.
Bye.
Stay positive and test negative, everybody. Aloha.
Very good. I can do that.